Raptors fans were really excited when it was announced that the Raptors were signing undrafted free agent point guard Markquis Nowell to a two-way contract. And I myself was very excited to see. So what do the Raptors think? What does the Raptors front office think after seeing him in Summer League? So to preface, Markquis Nowell, I mean, liked him in the NCAA regular season. Absolutely fell in love with the player watching him in March Madness. And anybody watched March Madness, I mean, you saw the unbelievable talent Markquis Nowell displayed. Broke the single-game assist record for the NCAA National Tournament for basketball and was exceptional. Carried that Kansas State team to, I believe they got to the Elite Eight and nearly got to the Final Four. But he was just an absolute monster in that. And I think it was enough to land him that NBA contract. I'm not sure if the NBA contract happens without that incredible run in March Madness, but it did happen, and therefore I thought that a team maybe should take a flyer on him in like the late second round, but based on the way some players fell, like Leonard Miller fell so much, Ryan Rupert fell a ton, and that Indiana center, let me just look up his name real quick. The fact that a player as talented as Trayce Jackson-Davis went 57th overall made this a very deep draft. But I was very pleased when the Raptors were the team that did afford Markquis Nowell the opportunity to prove himself in the NBA. Now, the problem with all these great attributes about Markquis Nowell: exceptional three-point shooter, exceptional point guard, exceptional passer, exceptional offensive initiator. He's 5'7". He's 5'7". It's extraordinarily rare for a 5'7" player to have success in the NBA. Very, like maybe less than a handful have ever been able to carve out a role in the NBA. Markquis Nowell is trying to do that. Now, what's great about Markquis Nowell is that there may be not one player who's more motivated than him in the world. Like, the motivation for this player is absolutely astonishing. The drive that he has to succeed in this league is great to see. And we got a glimpse of what he has to do in Summer League to be successful in the NBA. So what Markquis Nowell does that allows him to thrive in professional basketball now at 5'7" is he has like limitless range, unbelievable three-point range, and consistently players have to go above screens to deal with the threat of that. They can do very high pick and rolls as a result. If you give him space, he's going to knock down his three-pointers. He can knock them down from deep if you play a little bit off of him. And that makes players come right up to him. He uses that very effectively because he's such an explosive player. So if you're on him, he can blow by you. If you go over the screen because you have to deal with his shot, then he has a little bit of a runway to gain momentum and get to the rim. He supplies just enough rim pressure to manipulate the defenses as a result. And with that, he is just an outstanding passer. An outstanding passer. The creative ways in which he can find a pass out of nothing is just remarkable. Let's take a look on a play specifically from Summer League where in transition, he just looked fantastic. Right here, behind the back, up top there to Wieskamp for the and one. I mean, just plays like that. The incredible ways he works to find angles is incredibly impressive, and I think it's going to allow him to find big success relative to his size. So I was saying in March, put this guy in your G League and just see how far his talent takes him because he is so talented. And according to reports here from TSN's Josh Lumenberg, the Raptors front office is also extremely excited about the prospect of what Markquis Nowell can bring to the team. So I'll read it here, an up and down Summer League, but speaking to people in Raptors front office about Nowell, they have not been this excited about an undrafted player since Fred VanVleet, who obviously went on to become a Sixth Man of the Year finalist, an All-Star, and of course, an NBA champion. Some obvious similarities because of their path to the NBA and their size, but like Fred VanVleet at this stage, the feel for the game is well beyond the year. So Markquis Nowell is handicapped because of his height, so he does have to be way better in other categories to make up for that, and he certainly is way better in other categories, as I have mentioned so far. So Markquis Nowell, in terms of what he needs to do to be successful at the NBA level, I mean, I've outlined all the things here, but specifically the Raptors need to do a good job in giving him the tools to succeed. So we talked about earlier on in the stream, Joe Wieskamp getting waived and wanting to bring Moses Brown into the fold for the Raptors because that's going to be an exceptional pick-and-roll partner to pair Markquis Nowell with in the G League to get the most out of his game. Because if there is genuine excitement from the front office about Markquis Nowell, they're going to work for him. And, you know, with Fred VanVleet, like, the front office here, you know, they've had a bit of a barren spell in terms of finding developmental projects and finding these success stories in these overlooked players. But with Fred VanVleet, when as an undrafted free agent, the Raptors signed him, and immediately, they saw this guy in the D League. They saw this guy training camp in Summer League. Immediately, they were like, this was an absolute steal of a player as far as undrafted. Like, this was an absolute steal to get out of an undrafted player. So Markquis Nowell, you have to remember, even though he's a rookie, he is 23 years old. He's only very, very minimally younger than Moses Brown, who is about to enter his 5th year in the NBA. But I feel as though, despite the size being a problem here, Markquis Nowell is a player who has the capabilities to find steady NBA contracts for the better part of a decade. You know, it's going to be difficult once maybe athleticism wanes away a little bit. Maybe not quite a decade because he'll be 33 years old. But I think this is a player who has the ability to carve out an NBA career. And, you know, I don't think it's going to happen right away for the Raptors, but for a team that is so thin in the point guard position, you know, it's not out of the realms of possibilities that we're looking at this in January, February, near the deadline, and all of a sudden Markquis Nowell is carving out some sort of rotation role with the Raptors. Maybe not everyday rotation, but, you know, on the bench, getting himself some opportunities there. So I am extraordinarily excited to see him in the G League because he has got to be one of the most talented players to ever enter the G League system. It's just, can you overcome that height deficiency? That's the biggest thing, because we saw, you know, as Josh Lewenberg alluded to in that tweet there were up and downs in Summer League, and the ups were knocking down threes, spacing the floor, picking amazing passes, wowing people with his playmaking skills, but the lows were when the three-point shot isn't falling. And there was that funny video where he pump fake, stepped inside for three, and like almost airballed a three, and as he shot, he turned around and started running away. But when the shot isn't falling, there's not much else he can do, because even though he applies enough rim pressure, nobody's scared of it. So you can sit in the paint, and he's 5'7". Like Fred VanVleet, as much as they were impressed with him, Fred VanVleet is listed at like 6'1". I mean, to me, Fred VanVleet's like 5'11". So we'll give him 6 feet tall for VanVleet. We'll give Markquis Nowell 5'8", because he's 5'8" in shoes. That's still, like, 5'8" to 6 feet tall is still a big difference. Like, that's still a 4-inch difference from Markquis Nowell to Fred VanVleet. So the problem is when he gets in the paint, in and amongst the trees, like, he's a creative finisher and he has to be for his size, but there's just no real way for Markquis Nowell to manipulate a defense on the inside. So he has to rely on the extra creativity. He has to rely on the additional passing ability that he has to the average player. But there is enough talent there that I think this is going to be one of the most exciting players that 905 have ever had. And I think this is a guy who has the prospect of being able to carve out a role in the NBA. If it's not in the NBA, this guy is going to play pro basketball and carve out a living playing basketball, because he has a talent, and more importantly, for a player of this size who has likely, like, think about, man, can you even imagine the amount of times he's been told he won't make it? He's too small. Can you imagine how many college coaches told him that? Can you imagine how many NBA coaches told him that? How many people online tell him that on a consistent basis? Like, can you imagine the last, like, 10 years of his life having to hear this so consistently? And he still pushes through, and he's still determined, and he has to work 3 times as hard as everybody else to be in this position, but he remains, and he's here. He worked himself up to the elite college level. He worked himself up to an NBA contract. He's likely going to work himself into the starting point guard spot in the G League. Can he work himself up to an NBA level? Hard over height, sure. He has his doubters, but with this guy's drive and desire to succeed, I am not going to be one of the guys doubting him. And I think there is potential he makes an impact at the NBA level for the Raptors at some point in the next few years. And that is very exciting to follow. But in the chat, guys, let me know. I mean, Markquis Nowell, does he excite you? I haven't seen many negative things about Markquis Nowell. I mean, we know he's short, but there seems to be a lot of excitement here, so I'd love to hear your thoughts as well on this whole situation.